Welcome back. In the previous step, we created a simple login component, and we said in this step, we'll add a little bit more complexity to it. Let's get started in this specific step. Now, we have a username and a password. That looks good, but we don't really have a button yet, right? So typically, you need a button to be able to log in. So let's add a button in. So I'll say button, and let's call this button as login. Will I be able to see the login button? Yes, I can see the login button. Now, when I click the login button, nothing is happening in here. So I can enter username and I can enter password and I can click login. Nothing is happening in here, right? When I do a right click, let's say inspect and go to the console, you don't see anything down here yet. What can I do to make sure that I can perform an action when the login button is clicked? Typically, when you write typical JavaScript, what we do is we create a JavaScript file, external one, and we'll create a method in it, and we would say on click is equal to do something. Angular takes a very similar approach. Earlier, we made use of something called data binding. So let's open up the login component, Control P, login.component.ts. That's the one which we would want to open. What we can do over here, we can have a, let's say, a default value for the username, right? So I can say username is equal to the default value I would want to give is, let's say, in 28 minutes, all small, be careful with it. So username is in 28 minutes. Let's say that's the default username that I would want to show. And the default password I would want to show is password is equal to, let's say, empty. Let's use single quotes to keep it consistent. So we have a username in 28 minutes, password is empty. Now I would want to show this defaults on the login component. How can we do that? Think about it. We use this feature a little while. The way I can do that is by saying value is equal to what the value should be. We can use interpolation. So we can use interpolation to get the value which is in the component. So from the component, I want to get the value for what? For username. So let's go ahead and do that. So now it says value is equal to username, and for password the default value anyway would be empty, but let's even play safe, right? So let's put password in here. That's the name, right? So username and password, we are taking these names and we are putting them in here. Let's see what would happen when the page refreshes. By default, username has in 28 minutes. So what we are doing in here is we are taking data from the component and tying it to the template. So from the view logic where the data is present, we are tying it down to a template. First, starting off, let's say when login button is clicked, I would want to print the username. The way we can do that in Angular is by doing something called event binding. So the syntax of the event binding is nothing but event. Which event are you listening to, and method you would want to call. So what should you do? So when an event happens, what should you do? The event we are looking for here is something called click. So we are looking for the click event, and what we want to do is we would want to call a method. What is the method that I would want to call? Handle login. Let's refresh the page and click login. Oops, nothing happened. Inspect, console. It says handle login is not really a function. How do we fix this? We said call handle login, but we did not really define handle login anywhere. The great thing about Angular is the fact that the place where you would define this is the login.component. So this component would handle all the view logic. So all the methods which are related to the view would be coded in login.component. So all that I need to do is define a method called handle login in here, and let's do a simple console.log. Let's just print username. You can see that there is a compilation error because when you are referring to member variables, you have to use this dot. Let's see what would happen now. So now when you say login, it's printing in 28 minutes. That's cool. There's a small warning in here which you can ignore. If you are really interested in it, just go and read about it. Let's see what would happen if I change the username. In 28 minutes, extended, and I click login. It's again printing in 28 minutes. The 2 here says that in 28 minutes was printed earlier and again right now. So it's not printing in 28 minutes extended, but it's printing in 28 minutes again. how do I take the data from the screen element, from the view element, and populate it into the component data. What we are able to do is take the component data, we were able to use interpolation and put it on the screen. But now what we want to do is whatever user has typed in, I would want to be able to take it and show it in the component. How do I do that? Think about it, and I'll see you in the next step.